Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome to Steelers Almighty Scouting Report Edition. Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the New York Giants on Monday night. Should be an excellent football game. Look, this matchup, the Steelers are the better football team. The Giants are in a little bit of disarray. The Steelers are coming off of a really good game against the Jets. They've won two in a row. Things are rolling, supposedly. But if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you know, just like I know, how many times have the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 5 to 7 years played down to their competition and actually lose a football game that they weren't supposed to? Heck, you don't have to go back 5 to 7 years. Go back 3 weeks. The Dallas Cowboys. Pittsburgh Steelers were better. They lost that football game at home. So, again, if we're trying to go where we're trying to go, this is not a football game that we should lose. I'm not saying this is an easy game by any means by any means at all, because it isn't. What I am saying is the Pittsburgh Steelers have the better roster, the better coaching, the matchups favor them, all those things. We should be able to go win this football game. So we're going to break all this down for you guys. We appreciate you. We also have Adrianna Lafolla, who's going to be talking, who's with Everything New York Jets. She's joining us later. You are going to like what she has to say about the Giants and about this matchup. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll get into this. Before we do, remember, like, follow, subscribe, and continue to leave all those comments. We appreciate all the support. We're just under 3,800 subscribers already. We just started April 4th, man. It's all because of you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys, man, a lot. I really do appreciate it. So let's get into this. So, first things first, New York Giants on Monday night. Should be a crazy atmosphere in Pittsburgh. The weather's going to be good. I think in the mid to high 40s at kickoff. No rain, thank God, just like that Dallas game. So, should be an excellent night of football. The Steelers are favored. Right now, I see a lot where the Steelers -6. And that makes sense. I mentioned it before, and we'll get into it. The Steelers are the better football team. So the -6 makes a ton of sense to me. So let's get into the rest of this. So, as far as personnel is concerned, I think a lot of people know the Giants, Daniel Jones is their quarterback. I don't know how you feel about Daniel Jones. We've seen him. Um, I I don't know. I'm not a Giants fan. I don't follow him that closely. So the things that I do see haven't been great. But Daniel Jones, every now and then he puts together a good football game, and it usually happens on the road. Well, this game is on the road. The flip side of that is he is absolutely awful in primetime football games. So, and this one happens to be a primetime football game. So there's that part of it that maybe favors the Steelers. Malik Neighbors is kind of doing his thing, 427 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns as a rookie. That's also missing a football game. He's really talented. He's really talented. The Steelers have given up some passing yards this year, so they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's to be able to keep down Malik Neighbors. Now, they don't do a ton running the ball. Devin Singletary, he's got 239 yards, 2 touchdowns. Steelers' run defense is really good, but it was really good when we were going against Dallas too, and we saw what happened in that football game. So I'm going to keep referencing that so that we understand exactly what's going on. Just because we are the better football team does not always mean that we're going to come out on top. We should, but it doesn't mean that we will. So, and then on the defensive side of the ball, I think it kind of starts and stops with Dexter Lawrence, man. That guy is an absolute monster. 9 sacks on the season from basically the nose tackle position. The guy's unblockable. He's big. He's mean. He's athletic. He's getting after it. I mean, if you had to vote right now, he's a defensive player of the year. I know Steeler fans, you're not going to like hearing that because we have who I still consider the best defensive player in the world in TJ Watt. But you got to look at, I mean, TJ's getting triple teamed, and I get all of that. Dexter Lawrence is 2 inside, and he's still making plays. So the guy is just playing phenomenal football. Brian Burns, one of their acquisitions, he's playing good football as well. So the Giants defense isn't terrible. It's not. I know people are going to look at the score and even look at the score of last week when they played the Eagles and think, Oh, what are you talking about? There, hey, it wasn't. I mean, if you're on the field 3/4 of a football game, that makes it tough when you're a defense. That makes it tough. And the Giants couldn't do anything as far as offensively in that football game, so it made it tough on them. But they did have 5 sacks in that football game. Think about that for a second. You're getting your head beaten in and blown out. You still get 5 sacks. So the Steelers, yes, we got to be on our P's and Q's up front, man. We just do. As far as any free agent acquisitions, the big trade that they made for Brian Burns, um, they gave him all that money. I don't know. Look, I think Brian Burns is a good football player. Is he spectacular? No. But he is a good football player. I don't know that I would have gone and broken the bank to get him. But hey, the Giants said, hey, we got to have this guy. It makes sense for us to have this guy. And to get him, this is what we need to give him. And they did it. You can fault that if you want. But sometimes when you have the guy that you want to be a part of your franchise, you overpay. And I've said this once, I said it a million times. Everybody overpays in free agency. They just do. So good for Brian Burns for, number one, getting his money. He's in a place where he wants to be. We'll see if it works out in the future. So as far as the top draft picks, I mentioned Malik Neighbors. I mean, a lot of people think that he was the best wide receiver in the draft, better than Marvin Harrison Jr. A lot of people. I mean, if you ask 10 people, you would get 5 that say one, 5 would say the other. If you asked 100 people, you'd get 50 that said one, 50 that said a number. It was that close. And like I mentioned, there was nothing that Malik Neighbors did in college that just says, he's not better than Marvin Harrison Jr. You just didn't. You might prefer one over the other. That's fine. But Malik Neighbors is a real deal as a rookie. As far as injury front, Zach Frazier's still going to be out for the Steelers. Nick Herbig still going to be out. There's a possibility that a couple of guys will come back as we tape this. We don't know for sure, but we'll find out, as the week comes. We do our live right before the game, and that'll be on Monday. We'll have our inactives and let you know exactly. But as of right this second, Zach Frazier and Nick Herbig are out. Andrew Thomas for the Giants, he's out. Liz Frank injury, yeah, tough, man. Just tough because he was clearly their best offensive lineman, and for him to be out, it's just tough, man. So moving on to some of these matchups. I try to do this each week where I say, okay, the strength of one team is going against the strength of another team. And I'll be flat out honest with you, I couldn't find that this week. I couldn't find where the strength of what the Steelers do on offense or defense is the strength against the Giants' offense or defense. So what I said was the Steelers' scoring offense is 16th, which that's middle of the road. It's not necessarily a strength against the Giants' scoring defense, which is 12th. I'd say about as close as I could get it as far as a strength versus strength. And I know what you're going to say. Come on, B. That's not a Steelers strength. You're right. It's not. But putting this together, that's as close as I could get. So it is what it is. As far as the strength versus the weakness, I think this one's pretty simple. The Steelers' defense is ranked, their run defense is ranked 3rd in the league. They do an excellent job against the run outside of early yardage last week to Breece Hall, which a lot of that was throwing the ball to him. He didn't get much. The Jets didn't get much. I suspect it's going to be the same thing. But again, I said the same thing against the Cowboys, and we saw what happened there. So, but the Giants offense, they can't run it. They're 26th in the league. They're not good. Or 25th in the league. I'm sorry. They're not any good at running the football. The Steelers should be able to shut down what the Giants are bringing. And again, some of the Giants, the element of running is Daniel Jones. It's not just running backs. Daniel Jones can move around. Regardless of what you think of him as a quarterback, he is still athletic. He still can run the football. So the Steelers will have to watch and make sure they don't give up any of those unseen or those hidden yards with the quarterback running the football. As far as a weakness versus a strength, again, this one's a no-brainer to me too. The Steelers pass protection or the passing offense versus the Giants pass defense. Look, a lot of the Giants defense is because they can get after the quarterback, and it's 6th in the league. The Steelers passing offense, although it looked better last week, is still only 26th in the National Football League. Now, you could say those numbers are skewed because, hey, Russell Wilson's only played one game. But again, Russell Wilson's only played one game. So as much as good as he looked the final 2.5 quarters, he hadn't played all year. And again, it was just those 2.5 quarters. So we got to pump the brakes before we call him the next Joe Montana. Although I'm very, very hopeful that he's going to continue to play well and want him to play well. It was we haven't seen a consistency with that as of yet. So the one thing that's concerning is the Giants' defensive line. It gets after you. So they're gonna have to be on par. They're gonna have to be on cue. The Steelers' offensive line, because if not, again, where Justin Fields could get you out of trouble with his legs, Russell Wilson's not going to be able to get you out of that same kind of trouble. So hopefully he can just get the ball out of his hand quickly and doesn't have to deal with a ton of that. Now let's go over to some of the matchups here. As far as the location, I mentioned to you the game is in Pittsburgh. The coaching, I think, is unquestioned. Mike Tomlin is the better football coach. Again, I know there's Mike Tomlin haters out there, and no matter what he does, is Mike Tomlin's not good enough. That's fine. But Mike Tomlin is a better coach than Brian Daboll at this point. Period. End of story. And there's no discussion to even be had about that. As far as the history between the two, long history. These franchises have been around for a long, long time. And the Giants lead the series 44-31, but the Steelers have won the last 4 out of 5, including the last 3 in a row. So they don't play every year because they're in different conferences, but the Steelers here recently have dominated that series. As far as the rosters go, the Steelers have a better roster. Now that was the one thing when the Steelers played the Cowboys that I wasn't quite sure on. While I thought the matchups favored the Steelers, when you just went to the rosters, it was like, I don't know. In this case, the Steelers have a better roster than the New York Giants. Period. End of story. Down the list, they have a better roster. Not saying that each individual player at every position is better, but they have a better roster than the New York Giants, man. As far as the matchups, I would say the Steelers have a decided advantage in the matchups across the board. The one thing, again, I'm going to bring it up again, that's a problem for me is that the Steelers protecting. The Steelers protecting. If they can protect and they can run the football, then yes, they got a shot here. Not just a shot, they got a shot to dominate the football game. But that's the one worry that I have in this game is when we drop back to pass, can we protect? Can we do enough? If we can, I think we'll be fine. If not, going to be a long game. So, but as far as the outcome, I think the Steelers win this football game. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Steelers aren't built to blow anybody out. And it's hard pressed for me to ever think. I know we blew out the Jets the other night. I get that. But the Steelers technically aren't built to just blow teams out of the water. Oh, water, excuse me. So I think the Steelers win 33-16. I think it's a dominant win, but not just some blowout, blow them out of the water type of win. You know what I'm saying? 45-10 or something like that. No, I don't think it's going to be that, but it's going to be a nice, firm, dominant victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now we're going to bring in Adrianna Lafolla. She's coming in. She is with everything New York Giants. You're going to like some of the stuff that she has to say. I really, really enjoy her channel. Again, if you're a New York Giants fan and your algorithm has brought you here, make sure that you go and follow her. She is doing some really, really good stuff, has some good insights on the New York Giants. So we're going to bring her in now. Okay, we've got Adrianna Lafolla joining us here on the scouting report. First thing, Adrianna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you again for giving us your time. We really do appreciate it. We like doing these scouting reports, so I appreciate you giving us your time to join us on Steelers Almighty. Um, First things first, man. Let's just give me kind of the pulse of the New York Giants right now when it comes to. I'll say the fan base. What are the fans thinking right now? Because I feel like that you kind of have the pulse of the fans of the Giants. What is going on right now?
It's not great. I'll say that. I think for the first time since Daniel Jones was drafted, the entire fan base has come together, regardless of where they were at 6 years ago and where they were even feeling 2 weeks ago when,
Mhm.
he had a great game against Seattle. I think the consensus is we've seen enough from him and we're ready to move on at quarterback. Unfortunately, the other quarterbacks that are on the roster are not necessarily better than Jones, but
Right.
I think the feeling is that, we lost our star left tackle. The only other left tackle that we have in right there is god awful. And, Jones was mediocre with a good left tackle, and now with a bad left tackle, he's awful. So I think we kind of just all agree, the defense is for the most part doing the best that they can. This offense is horrible. Maybe Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito would be better at this point instead of Jones.
Got you. Looking at, um, you know, I don't know. When you look at Hard Knocks and you saw them, kind of the fanfare of Drew Lock. Look, I get that Daniel Jones was coming off of an ACL injury, but I didn't really think. I mean, the Giants. It kind of got played up. Now, some of that's for TV, but it kind of
Mhm.
got played up like Drew Lock had an opportunity to win the job. I don't know that that was ever the case at all.
Yeah.
But as you said, now it's like, look, we are where we are. Maybe you give Drew Lock an opportunity.
Mhm. I think that's what it comes down to is that, we cannot this offense cannot score a touchdown at home. It's
Right.
been 4 home games this year, they have 1 touchdown, like, it's pathetic, and in my opinion, I do think a lot of that is Jones is just very much in his head. He knows that for 6 years, a large portion of the fan base hates him, he knows what people say about him in the
Right.
press, and I honestly just think that he can't get it out of his head when he's at home, and that's why he plays so much better on the road. So I don't know what we're going to see out of him Monday night. Maybe it's going to be better than what we've seen at home, but I have been a Jones supporter because he's the Giants quarterback.
Right.
That's who he decided is the man for the job. I, will support him, but I also feel like, at this point, with the way that the offensive line is and knowing that the left tackle is out, I just don't really think he's going to get any better. So I feel like, what's the harm in putting in Drew Lock? At this point, you paid the guy $5 million. He's going to be the backup guy. Jones is not going to be here for the future. And
Right.
I'm also like, if he didn't have the injury guarantee, fine. Play Jones the rest of the year. I don't care. The season's over for the most part, as far as I'm concerned. But because of that injury guarantee, I'm like, please get him out of there also because I don't want to be on the hook for him next year when we're
Correct.
finally going to have an out and an opportunity to move on at quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, they have an out after this season,
Yes.
and I would. I mean, I'm guessing that they're gonna move on, but you never know. But I would almost guarantee that they're gonna move on there. You mentioned the offensive line. It doesn't seem like the Giants. Look, trust me, the Steelers have had our offensive line issues. We're still going through offensive line issues. Um, why has it been so difficult to be able to put one together? Because it seems like this problem. And again, I'm not trying to just bandwagon jump all over the Giants or anything, but just looking at it, just seems like it's been a problem for a long
Yes.
time.
It has. It's been about a decade, if not longer. I think part of it is we've had 3 different GMs that have all dealt with the same problem. And I think unfortunately, they've had bad drafts. So, they've drafted offensive linemen in the first round or the second round. Evan Neal is a perfect example of this. I think Joe Shane is overall a good GM, but our 7th overall pick is not playing. And he was supposed to be the right tackle for 10 years. Like he was
Right.
supposed to be the guy opposite Andrew Thomas that settles into this line. So I think that's part of it. It's been bad drafting. It's been a lot of injuries. I think that's also been a huge issue. And I know it's the NFL and everyone deals with injuries, but for the last decade, the Giants have been one of the most injured teams in the league. So
Right.
that they are worse than other teams. And then also some bad free agency moves, like Dave Gettleman signing Nate Solder to a ridiculously expensive
Yeah.
deal when he was a horrible offensive lineman. So, it's kind of just been a combination of all of those different things. It's been also bad offensive line coaches, bad head coaches. It's just been all of it. And, this year is the first year that we've had a suitable offensive line until Andrew Thomas goes down.
Right.
I personally don't think the line is going to be awful for the rest of the year. I think the rest of the line had a bad day, and they have to figure out how they're going to play well with Andrew Thomas gone. Now, I
Yeah.
put part of that on the coaching because it's their fault for trotting out Joshua Zudu as a left tackle who is not a left tackle. So you're not helping the four other guys there.
Sure. So the Giant, you touched on this a second ago. The Giants' defense. Look, the Giants' defense has been okay. I mean, if there's a bright spot, which there is a bright spot, the Giants' defense has been all right. I mean, Dexter Lawrence
Oh,
is at this point, you could say he's the defensive player of the year. I mean, the guy is incredible. You literally can't move him, you can't block him. But
mhm.
some of the stats, if you just kind of go look at some of the stats, maybe they don't look great. But I think that's because they're on the field an awful lot and they're put in bad situations. But Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, I think that the Giants defense, who are some of the guys besides those two that have been playing well for this defense this year?
It's a shame because Kayvon was having a good season before he
Yeah.
got injured. So, Aziz has done a really nice job as a pass rusher, but he's not a great run defender, which is what Kayvon was. And sometimes that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. And I know, there are some Giants fans who say, we don't miss Kayvon. Aziz has done a good job, but he's missed out there. I mean, if
Right.
you watch the Giants versus Eagles game and you see the way that, Saquon was able to run all over them, they hadn't given up that much run yardage when Kayvon was on the field. So that was tough
Sure.
without Kayvon. But I think Aziz has done a nice job against the edge. Even Drew Phillips has been incredible as a rookie. He's been a guy that, there are not many bright spots, but he's a guy that a lot of us are very excited about. And he's someone who's made a difference when it comes to tackling. We've definitely had issues on this team where the tackling has been atrocious, and he's done a really excellent job there. And, even Cordell Flott, who had a tough start to the season, was playing really well before he just got injured last week. So there definitely have been some guys, and I think as a whole, they're playing well. They just, on Sunday, they were on the field most of the time.
Yeah.
And every time the offense went out there, it was essentially three and out. So, they're bound to get tired and to make mistakes that, up until that point, they were holding defenses to 21 points, which is pretty good. So,
Sure.
if the offense could have scored a couple touchdowns, they would have won more games. So
Right.
it's frustrating.
So, Brian Dable, I mean, quote unquote, I guess he's a quarterback guy. Technically fixed Josh Allen, hadn't been able to do that. What's kind of his future there? I feel like this season for the Giants, I don't know if it was a make or break season. Clearly, you have way more of the pulse of what's going on with the Giants than I ever will. Um, Having said all of that, just from the outside looking in, it kind of looks like, look, this thing isn't getting better. But I do know this as a person that follows the Steelers, sometimes being patient can work out to your benefit. I understand it may not be going the way that you want it to go, but if you just keep having turnover and turnover and turnover and firing coaches and GMs, you don't always just fix the problem like that. Sometimes you just got to ride out some of the bad stuff. But if the guy is actually a good coach, is that kind of the feeling that, hey, you know what? He's a good coach, just doesn't have all the pieces, had some bad luck with injuries. We need to stick around with this guy for a little while longer to see if he can make this thing work when we get other good players and the situation starts to change.
It depends who you ask because
Okay.
John Mara came out last night and said, as of right now, I don't plan on making any changes at head coach or GM. He said, I'm
Mhm.
planning to stick with these guys through the season and through another year, which I actually think was the right decision. I think that both of them deserve at least another year. I want to see Brian Dable get his own quarterback. Like you said, and like we know, he's done a great job with Josh Allen. And with Daniel Jones, I think there was only a certain amount of good play that he could get out of him. He doesn't have the raw talent that someone like Josh Allen has. So I want to see him draft a quarterback, mold him into what he can be. And when you talk about, the way that coaching or even just a quarterback can change things, like this team needs some help. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at a team like Washington,
Mhm.
who had a lot of turnover this year, look what Jaden Daniels is doing for them. It's incredible. And even when he comes out of the game with a rib injury, Marcus Mariota comes in and can still move the ball. So I really believe that Dable getting his own quarterback is going to be a good thing. And I think keeping Shane is a good thing too. Now, I know there are a good portion of the fan base too. They're loud, but I don't think there's as many of them who are saying they want them both gone. And I think I feel like you do. Like you don't fix a team overnight. It's easy to look at the Texans last year and say, look what CJ Stroud did for them. Well, they're struggling this year. It's easy to say the Commanders are doing great because they got a quarterback. They also, from the top all the way down, they have an entirely new coaching staff, GM, everything is different.
Owners.
Owner, right. So, it's working now, but we're going to see how long that's really going to last for. But I really just think you don't change things overnight. I think we have to be patient. And this is what John Mara said. He said, I have let my emotions get the best of me. And I don't think that that's the right move going forward, that I have to be patient. So I say the same thing to fans who walk out of a game and say, everyone needs to be fired. We have to start over. I'm a fan. I get the emotional part of it. I'm at these games. I'm embarrassed to wear my Giants gear because they look so bad. Like, I'm right there with everyone. I feel the same way, but I don't think it's as simple as firing everyone. I don't think that's the solution. And I think the biggest reason why the people who feel that way is because Bill Belichick is out there, because that's what I hear. Bill Belichick is going to come in here and save this team. He's going to be the GM, he's going to be the head coach, and everything's going to be fine. He's going to get a quarterback. I think if he wasn't out there, there would be less of that, because my argument is the grass isn't always greener. This is our third head coach in 7, 8 years. And look what's happened, it doesn't get fixed overnight.
No, it doesn't. Switching focus to this football game, the Steelers made a quarterback change. Things worked. I'm not suggesting that the Giants do that. Had a ton of podcasts this week saying, look, this was a big risk for Mike Tomlin,
Mhm.
changing all of this stuff because the Steelers were 4-2. I'm not saying Justin Fields played great, but he was still 4-2.
Right.
Any chance that they do make a change? I know we kind of touched on that earlier, but where they sit, is there any chance that they make a change and maybe we just don't know about it right now?
So Dable said on Monday that they're rolling with Jones on Monday night, and I think that's going to be the plan. I think if by halftime the defense has kept us in the game and it's a close game, but the offense has 0 points on the board or maybe a field goal if they're lucky,
Okay.
I think we're going to see a change at halftime. I expected it last game versus the Eagles when it was getting bad. I thought at halftime for sure we're going to see Drew Lock. But I think that at this point, Jones has a short leash. And, if he's the problem on Monday by halftime, I think we're going to see Drew Lock in there.
Got it. So, we've talked about a little bit about what they bring defensively. What are some of the things that the Giants are going to have to do to beat Pittsburgh? Look, I mean, the Steelers are going to have some defense that they're going to play. But I
Mhm.
will say this, and I'll talk about this on the other side of my scouting report is the Steelers have a propensity of because if you just look at this game, the Steelers are better than the Giants. But the
Yes.
Steelers have a propensity of playing down to their competition and losing those football games. So, what are some of the things that the Giants are going to have to do to be able to beat Pittsburgh on Monday night?
I think the biggest thing is going to be that the offensive line has to play well, because the Eagles defense going into Sunday had 11 sacks in
Right.
6 games. They walked out of MetLife Stadium with 19 sacks.
Right.
So I'm really worried about that. Dexter Lawrence right now has more sacks than TJ Watt, but I'm afraid to say things like that out loud because TJ Watt could have a showing out party on Monday night on national television. The Giants are historically horrible in prime time, especially with Daniel Jones. He's 1-14. And so that's my biggest thing is that if the offensive line can block and hold TJ Watt and limit him, we should be able to have some success, whether it's Daniel Jones back there or Drew Lock. I expect them to feed Malik Neighbors the ball. They have to establish the run game, which I think against Pittsburgh is going to be hard. But one of my problems with Dable is that the teams that we've played that have a bad run defense, he goes out there winging the ball.
Like
And
last
like
week.
Jones, I'm like, what are you doing? Jones can't
Yeah.
even throw a 10-yard pass. Why aren't you trying to run the ball? Now, the Steelers have a much better run defense, but I still think that he's got to start running the ball. And if the Steelers repeatedly shut him down, then you say, okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit.
Right.
So I'd like to see a more balanced approach on offense. For defense, Russ had a good game last week. I think he's feeling confident again. I think, they're really going to have to watch George Pickens, and I'm worried about him specifically because he's been really good against contested catches, and, we're gonna be missing, I think, Cordell Flott and potentially Adoree Jackson again, and
Mm.
with the way Tay Banks has played this year, I don't trust him against Pickens. I think Pickens could absolutely destroy him. So, I think if he can limit him one-on-one and make some plays, the Giants could be in good shape, but I don't have enough confidence in them to win this game.
Right. The thing about Pittsburgh and why the defense is so tricky is because you're right. The run defense has been really good this year. The pass defense, it's been okay. It's been good at times, but while they're really good against the run, they have a really good pass rush. And that's where the difference comes in. TJ Watt doesn't have a ton of sacks, but like last game against the Jets, I mean, they literally were triple teaming him. But then
Wow.
Alex Highsmith caused all kinds of problems. He just came back from an injury. That's kind of where the Steelers can get by with, yes, you can triple TJ Watt if you want, but we got other guys that can cause
Mhm.
problems for you. But that's the thing that worries me on the flip side is, Brian Banks is really good, but Dexter Lawrence, you just can't block that guy. I'm
Right.
concerned about the Steelers interior because number one, they're starting two rookie or a guy that's a backup and a rookie, inside, and then Isaac Siamala on the other side. But they haven't played great. They didn't play great last game. They played okay, but not great. Well, Dexter Lawrence is great. He commands at minimum a double team.
Yeah.
And even that's not enough. So I think that's where the cat and mouse game is going to come in. Can the Steelers pass protect against what I think is a pretty good pass rush from the Giants? So, well, I want
Yeah.
to thank you for your time today and just spending some time kind of breaking down what's going on with the Giants and some of the strategies for this Monday night game. Tell everybody again where they can find you and all the stuff that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. So, on Instagram and TikTok, my handle is at New York Giants Fangirl. And then on top of that, I also have a podcast called Everything New York Giants. So, I will be previewing the Giants Steelers game tomorrow. So, there will be a new episode out. And then I'm also a Yankees fan. So, luckily for me, I have some excitement there. So, I'm going to talk a little bit, some World Series action there too. So, something else to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I was bummed because I'm a diehard Mets fan. I know I'm a Steelers
Really?
fan, but yeah, I've been a Mets fan literally my whole life. I was
Oh,
so upset. I'm like, oh my goodness, but it
I
is
was
what it
rooting for a
is.
Subway series. I was like, this is gonna set New York on fire. It's gonna be the best thing ever. And I just felt like the Mets really had it.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been a good matchup. They got a really good team. So I was bummed for all my Mets fans because a lot of Giants fans are Mets fans too. And I just was
Right.
like, these poor guys, now they don't have the Giants to root for or the Mets. It's just
Oh,
brutal.
brutal. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And again, anytime in the future, if we need to bring you back, I hope you're available because I had a good time and we will definitely bring you back.
I would love it. Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you. Good stuff there on the New York Giants and some of the things that they're going to try to do to the Pittsburgh Steelers to try to win the football game. Again, if you are a Giants fan or just anybody in general, man, you like what she had to say, I think it was great. Make sure you go subscribe to her channel. She's doing some really good stuff over there. Now, look, I'm going to say this, Steeler fans. These are the type of games that is a Mike Tomlin special. We know it. You know it. I know. We all know it. We're playing well. Everybody's riding high. We're playing a bad football team. And let's make no mistake about it. The Giants right now are a bad football team. These are the type of games in the past that we have lost. They just are. And again, I said it at the beginning. over the last 5 to 7 years, you know this to be true, but we don't have to go back 5 to 7 years. The Dallas Cowboys right now are a bad football team, and they came to Pittsburgh and beat us. They couldn't run the ball, they couldn't stop the run. Apparently, they come to Pittsburgh and play us. They can do both. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So, again, I'm not saying the Pittsburgh Steelers are built to blow anybody out. I'm not saying the Pittsburgh Steelers even need to blow out the Giants. I'll take the win. But sometimes when you're better than the opponent, it's okay to put your foot down. It's okay to mash them into the dirt. And again, mashing into the dirt doesn't mean you have to win by 35 points. I'm not saying that. But a good, sound victory, I think, would go a long way for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. We got one last week. We need to do it again. Again, if we're supposed to be a good football team going into the bye, this is not a football game that we can lose. Not with the schedule that we have coming. I'll be flat out honest with you. If last week was a really important game, and it was, I think this week is equally important to get to the bye 6-2, heal up, and with the rest of the schedule coming, yes, this is a must-win football game. And I'm not saying that, we can't go to the playoffs or anything if we don't win the game, but I'm willing to say this. If the Steelers are, even if we were to back into the playoffs, if we can't beat this Giants team, why is this team going to be any different than the last two teams that have backed into the playoffs? Why would we think that? This is a team that we're better than, that we need to just go beat. I'm not saying you're not going to have to work hard, or we won't have to work hard, or any of those things, that it's going to be a cakewalk. I'm not saying that. It's the NFL. There are very little cakewalks in the NFL, but there can be definitive dominant performances without beating somebody by 5 touchdowns. I think the Steelers need to do that. So I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you guys so much, man, for everything that you guys have done. We are growing. Again, fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube to date. It's all because of you guys, man. I appreciate you. Can't wait to talk to you guys live before the game. It's on Monday, not on Sunday. It'll be on Monday, hour before the game. We'll talk. And remember, 15 minutes after the game, we'll be right back in the live doing what we do best, breaking down that Steelers game. So appreciate you guys. Thank you. Aloha.